Well, welcome back to my shop again this morning. Got a little sign here we're going to try making. There's nothing as nostalgic as an old ratty looking sign on the side of the road. Maybe it says keep off the grass, maybe it says no swimming allowed or something like that. And I thought I would take it a step further and do a gone fishing sign. You could probably put this up on your desk or a shelf or something like that when you decide to take a day off. In order to make this sign, I thought we would make it out of a crusty old piece of wood. I came across this piece of wood that I've had sitting around in my shop. So I think we're going to take that and use that to make this sign. And then we'll mount it up on a base of some sort later on down the road. Now, what I want to try to do with this sign is make it look a little bit rustic. So what I'm going to do is cut it out of the plain wood first, put some detailing on it, like those little cracks in the wood, and then I'm going to take it over to my sander and give it a good roughing up to make it look like it's been through the mills. Maybe eventually we'll stain it, we'll see. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do here, so you're going to go along with me on this little adventure, and let's see what we come up with. We're going to need our scroll saw to do this, and so let's get our blank set up first. Okay, to save a little time and not wanting to bore you much on this, I did a few of the steps that I normally do in my videos. If you are unfamiliar with them, you can go back and check out some of my other videos. First of all, we taped the blank with a green painter's tape, which I like using. I sanded the board a little bit down so that it would get rid of some of that green paint that was on there. And then I used a glue stick on the back of my pattern, cut that out, and smeared that glue stick all along the back, and then pasted it down on the top of the tape. So now when I have to take this pattern off, it'll be fairly easy. I just peel that right off. And of course I drilled my entry holes for the scroll saw blade to cut through. It's a fancy little font that was here. It's kind of an interesting one. And if you'd like this pattern, by the way, it's perfectly free. You can check down below, and I've got a link there to my free pattern page, and you can download this and try it yourself. You might actually enjoy doing it, maybe come up with some other ideas. Let me know if you do. I always like to share the ideas we come up with. Okay, so the next step then is to cut this thing out. We'll cut the letters out first on the scroll saw, and then we'll cut out the complete framework of the sign and get it ready for preparations. Okay, we're at the scroll saw here now, and I got my trusty old 5 reverse tooth blade, which I like using, and we'll just start to work on these letters first. Try to keep my hand out of the way. Always is a problem when I'm filming by myself, but see what we can do. We'll get this fish hook out of the way first. I got slim letters like this. It can be really tricky cutting them out, and taking the pieces out of a 3/4 inch board like this is kind of tricky too. So I let the blade do the work for me. Just slide it against the edge of the cut piece and it just pops it right up out of there. Okay, let's go on to the end. See if we run into any other problems. Take this at a slow speed. Don't try to do it too fast. These thin letters are a little tricky to work with. We got our sign all done now, on the scroll saw anyways. And a couple of things I want to point out. As I was cutting it, you probably noticed I didn't stay exactly with the lines as they were on the pattern. That's because I like to create as I go along. I use the lines just as a guide. If I see something that might look a little better, I might veer off those lines. So don't be afraid to do that with your pattern sometimes. Also, good thing about doing a rustic sign like this is you don't have to worry about being meticulous on a lot of the things, because it's going to look, well, rustic, and get a little bit crooked here, a little crooked there on your cuts. Not a big deal, because that's what the sign is supposed to look like anyways in the end. Okay, so what we want to do now is peel off all this tape and pattern, and we have some plain wood underneath, and we'll see what we're going to do with that. Okay, we got all that nasty old tape off and pattern, and as you recall, this was a green piece of wood, some green paint on there. I didn't sand off on the front and on the back. So what I'm going to do is take that over and sand that off first, and then we're going to try putting some nicks and marks and gouges, call them what you want, all over this sign to make it look like it's been through an awful lot in the last 30-40 years where it's been sitting. So how are we going to do this aging process for this sign? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the belt sander on, let it spin freely, and I'm going to just sort of rub this in different directions. It's all going to be improvised, nothing fancy here. Just to give it some gouges and some curves and some wear and tear. It probably would have happened over the last 30 or so years if this thing has been sitting out by a little lake, just letting the weather take it apart. Got to be very careful in doing this because the wood is rather flimsy and you don't want the thing to be demolished completely, of course. So let's give it a try and see what we can do. Okay, we did a pretty nice job of roughing this up, I think. As you notice, we lost a little piece of the grass down here. Should be easy enough to just glue that in, though, without any problem. But we got the nice rustic edges here and roughed it all up. And now what we want to do is smooth that out a little bit. We'll do that on the belt, not the belt sander, but the buffing sander over there. And then we'll come back and do another little experiment on it. And the sanding mop did a pretty nice job in clearing up some of the little fuzzies around the edges, things of that sort. Okay, let's go back to the bench. Well, welcome to Baguetta's Paint Emporium here. Well, not really much. I don't do a lot of painting, so I don't really have a good facility for this, but a good old table will do the job, especially when we're making our rustic sign. Now, I want this to be looking like it was out in the rain and the bad weather and the snow and whatever for about 20-30 years. I suppose we could just do that, put it outside and let it sit there for about 20-30 years, but none of us would probably be around here to look at this later on if we did that. So what I'm going to do is try to forcefully make it look a lot older and weathered. And what I've done is I've taken some water and I put this water-based paint in there, black. Makes it nice and black looking. You don't really want a black sign though. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix that up a little bit. We're going to add to that some white. Now if you add white to black, theoretically you should come up with something like a gray, I would think. Put that in there. This paint is getting a little old. Probably should get some new, fresh stuff. But that's okay. Again, all we have to do is make it look rustic, and this I think will help. Okay, so white and black, and we're getting a darkish gray here, but I think it'll look better once we get it on the sign. It's going to be a bit of a wash that we're going to actually end up with. Make it look like it's weathered. So what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll get our brush and start to put some of this down on here, see what we come up with. We don't want it to be too pretty. Let's paint over it. Not a spectacular paint job here, but it'll do. And the inside under the arms here. I didn't bother to glue that other piece back in that broke off. Didn't make it look too much different than what it was originally. And I suppose a broken piece would probably suggest more wear and tear on it, you know, so we won't worry about that. Just want to worry about getting this thing coated now. Getting more white on here, which we don't really necessarily want a lot of, but we could take it. Now, the way I'm going to dry this off, I'm going to let it dry, let it sit around and dry, but I'm sort of anxious to get it together here, so what I'm going to do is help the drying process. And the way we can do that is by using an air compressor of some sort. I happen to have a little handy one here, so let's go dry this thing off a bit. Okay, we're going to use the DataVac electric duster. Blows a good stream of air, help it dry, and it also heats up too as it goes along. Okay, looks pretty good here. Nice rustic old sign. Now, you of course could finish it differently than I did. If you got a nice wood that you cut it out of, you might want to put a little bit of a sheen on it. I wanted it to really look bad, so I think I've achieved that pretty good. And I'm going to mount this up on a base, and we'll see how it looks. I might give it a coating of clear spray once it's really dried nicely, just to give it a little bit of a glisten to it, since it is going to be a display piece. Okay, well, that's our project for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and you might want to cut these. Remember, as I said below, there's a link down there. You can click on it and get yourself the free pattern. If you like this video, click the like button down there too. It'll help me. And also, if you want to subscribe to the channel, you can click the subscribe button down there, and that'll put you in contact with me, and you'll be able to see any future ideas I come up with concerning the scroll saw and other things that I also have too. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.